Welcome. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission for the FY23 Arts Project Support Region 8 panel. I'm Sean Hildreth, Marketing Communications and Outreach Officer at the Brown County Community Foundation in Nashville and the Region 8 Art Partner, and I'm from the small town of Seymour. This is a public review panel meeting. Visitors may listen into the conversation but are not permitted to speak or address the panelists before, during, or after the meeting. And meeting visitors are muted. So if you're a meeting guest, not a panelist, please type your name and home county in the chat box so we know who's here with us. And today's May 9th, and we're meeting online and streaming live for applicants and the public to observe. There's no contact, like I said. The meeting will be recorded and made available upon request. And at this time, I want to individually invite each of the panelists and staff from IAC to introduce themselves, starting with their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. Let's start with the panel. So we'll start with Samantha.
I'm Samantha Benty. I'm in Evansville. I'm the president of the Haney's Corner Arts District Association, which is a volunteer activity. For work, I'm a brain injury specialist for a rehab hospital.
Thank you. Taryn.
Yeah, good morning. Taryn Marks. I'm here in Bloomington, and I own Brown County Forge, a blacksmithing company.
Thank you. Madison.
I'm Madison Miller. I'm the CEO of the Brown County Community Foundation located in Nashville, Indiana.
Thank you. And Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Good. I am a writer professionally and have extensive grant funding and writing experience, and I am in Seymour, Indiana.
Paige.
Hi, I'm Paige Schwerp. I'm the Deputy Director of Programs with the Indiana Arts Commission. I'm just here to welcome everybody aboard, appreciate their time and energy in this process, and be in the background should Sean need me.
And last but not least.
Hi, Fabian Schneck, and I'm our Grants Research and Technology Manager, and I'm here in a tech role today.
Thank you. Now we'll begin the panel review, and this is a little bit how the process will work. I will announce the application, and we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. And after the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for a consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. So after the second reader is finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. And remember, in the interest of time, we're only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, the panelist will be placed on hold. However, there are no conflicts of interest on this panel, so we should be good there. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we'll ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. It's common for scores to change as a result of the broader discussion. So once you update those scores, they will save automatically. Are there any questions? All right, we can start. So we're going to start with the application from Amity Trio, and the first reader is Madison Miller.
Yes, so this application from the Amity Trio highlights some multimedia performances in surrounding schools and 2 community concerts in the region. I thought it was lovely to see that the applicant had incorporated feedback from previous partners in designing the project and the associated curriculum. I was also interested to see the flexibility that they would provide teachers in incorporating the curriculum into their existing work. However, I would have liked to have seen some more data points to support the applicant's definition of under-resourced communities. I think it would have been nice to see exactly how they identify that term in the application. And it was also unclear to me how many of the concerts are actually going to occur in IU facilities, which was something that was briefly mentioned. And I did not see any specific idea strategies listed in the proposal, though it's clear that you're asking for feedback from the communities that you serve and you support the tenets of DEI through your mission, of course. But for example, if you're working with communities of various ages, as your application states, how are you making the venue or the event accessible to them? Or in your outreach to the Latinx community, how have you adjusted your marketing and communications, those types of things. So I thought the project manager seemed very impressive. Yeah, those are my comments.
All right. Thank you, Madison. And the second reader will be Sam.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I totally agree on the such a great focus of a community and very impressive folks involved in this project. Looking through the media, there were so many different examples. It was just absolutely multifaceted, which seems like it could be a great opportunity for the participants, but it was tough to see a focus and tough to see to understand exactly how this project would be impactful, just because there were so many different pieces. There was a poetry piece, a live performance piece. So there's so much that it seems like it could be a really fantastic opportunity, but tough to see that focus. I agree on the confusion about where the facilities are going to be, which facilities are going to be used for these performances. And I also agree on taking into consideration the teacher feedback on those, how those performances can best go. And also agree on the fact that there wasn't a super pinpointed way of, more formal way of gathering that information for folks that maybe didn't feel comfortable offering opinions.
Thank you, Sam. Do we have any new, additional, or opposing comments from any other panelists? Okay, well then I will ask you to take a moment to please finalize your scores and update your online comments, and kind of look ahead and head up when you're done. I'll just kind of look around to make sure everybody's ready for the next. And no rush, just take your time and let me know when you're ready. Okay, it appears that everyone is ready. We'll move on with the application from the Area 10 Council on Aging of Monroe and Owen counties. And the first reader for this one is Sam.
I thought there was a great diversity in the artistic offerings here. The video performance of the djembe performance and integration with the community with the IU Marching 100 was a great feature in the examples that were offered. In terms of the idea strategy, I loved that there were plans to address so many different kinds of inclusion. I would have liked to have known more ways about more potential ways to explore expanding those offerings, and a little bit more about the demographic that's generally served. There wasn't a lot of area income information. Also, class fees were not addressed in this section, but were mentioned later in the application. And I think that could have been a relevant thing to address in the idea section, but it was really otherwise very thoroughly explored. The planning and implementation information wasn't included, which I suspect is because it's an organization that kind of does this thing all the time, with rolling classes and opportunities. So, but it would have been nice to have seen a little bit more about that timeline. I was unclear about why the setup fees for the string class was mentioned in the narrative, but not in the budget. Unclear if the class could continue without those supplies, and unsure of what the larger marketing expenses, given the marketing information that we were provided earlier in the application. But it does seem pretty realistic and seems to fit in terms of outreach and budget and timeline, all seems to be very appropriate.
Thank you, Sam. The second reader for this will be Taryn.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with all of what Sam has said. I thought overall it was a fantastic project for focus, planning, and execution. In terms of community engagement and idea principles, the project relies on the group participation of the identified community. They engage older adults in artistic pursuits. It seems like it would improve quality of life and have far-reaching impact on the wider community. They show a clear interest in appealing to more varied demographics. And they show a commitment to gathering feedback and awareness of a need to expand in areas of diversity. And it's good to see that. And this has been going on for quite a while. So with 8 years of experience putting these programs on, the project seems to be well in hand. They have a thorough timeline with clear dates, and I felt the project budget was clear and it made sense.
Great. Thank you, Taryn. Any new, additional, or opposing comments from any of our panelists? Okay, then I ask you to do the same. Please finalize your scores and update your online comments. And I'm just going to look up and nod when you're ready. All right. Our next application will be the Arts Alliance of Greater Bloomington. And the first reader for that is going to be Taryn. So Taryn, please.
Thank you. So I'm looking through this application. I like to see the clear workshop titling. They had good funding breakdown, review of instructor resources, and showed a local connection. They seem to bring a variety of accessible arts disciplines to the community. So things that people could get into fairly easily. And being at the mall, it's in an ADA accessible space. So that was good for accessibility. And it appears that all artists receiving stipends are Indiana artists from the greater Bloomington area. So that hits that criteria. The focus is on providing engaging artistic experiences for residents of Bloomington and nearby towns. In terms of idea principles here, some underserved communities are addressed in the application, but a more detailed plan for reaching others would be helpful. In terms of developing the project with the community rather than for, there's a focus on working with the 12 artists who will be teaching the classes. There's no mention of seeking wider community engagement in the development of the project, however. The location of the majority of the workshops is easy to find, which I thought was good, and easy to access for people of all abilities. If there are participants who lack transportation, this could present a significant barrier to participation. So if they don't have their own vehicle, they need to take the bus. If they're from outlying towns, the social media posts provided may need some development to increase engagement. So they seemed a little bit spare. Participation numbers seem a little high, but achievable with effective promotion. And that kind of ties back into social media post development. More detail about the surveys, so the exit surveys, how they'll be given and retrieved from participants would also be helpful. In terms of project management, excuse me, the project leadership appears to be well qualified to manage multiple people and the many moving parts of this project. Their background in conducting large musical bodies of multiple age groups seems like good preparation. The lead time before the first workshop seems adequate, so we've got some months in between now and then. Leaving a gap between the end of one workshop and the start of another allows for evaluation and ironing out any wrinkles in the process. And their budget, excuse me, places the correct emphasis on compensating the artists for their time and expertise. And that's it.
Thank you, Taryn. The second reader will be Bonnie Good.
And I agree with Taryn's comments. I would have liked to have seen more information on the support sections. And I thought the artistic quality section was a little sparse on detail. So I'd just like to see more of that in the future.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I wanted to add that the management section, although everyone seems pretty qualified, was missing the planning steps for the activity timeline, which I would have liked to have seen to understand a little bit more. It's a big undertaking. I thought the artistic quality was quite significant here, but there are a lot of workshops happening, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about that outreach. And I did agree about the idea section. I'm scrolling to my notes, sorry. And I wondered, I didn't feel like really a lot of barriers were addressed at all. I was unaware of the cost to participate and actually pretty unsure of what the target audience was, which is a pretty big piece of information that would have been helpful for me to understand a little bit more about this request.
Thank you for the feedback. We want everybody to finalize your scores, update your online comments, and take your time and let me know when you're ready. All right, is everyone ready for the next application? Great. Okay, so the next application is for Bloomington Boogies. And the first reader will be Bonnie.
Okay, I had a few questions about this one. For example, the projected amount paid to artists is $350, but then if you look in some of the later parts, in the budget, the musicians actually receive $400 or $300, not $350. So I just like a little bit more precise wording on that, just to keep everything as accurate as possible. And then I did wonder if online surveys are the best way to get feedback from underserved areas. They also ask school personnel for evaluations after the fact, which I think is helpful. But I just wonder if there might be other ways that could be useful as well. And those
All
are
right.
my points.
Thank you, Bonnie. And the second reader will be Madison.
I concur with Bonnie's comments. I think that, I was interested to learn more about the underserved population that they plan to serve. For example, what percentage of families are low income in the elementary schools where they're doing outreach activities. One of my biggest questions about the application was really in the budget section, where it appears that they listed out IAC expenses separate than the overall project expenses. So for example, they had listed total project cash income for $5,000, but the itemized budget was $27,103. So things like that. But other than that, no additional feedback after Bonnie's.
Great, thank you. Any other panelists have any new, additional, or opposing comments? All right, so please finalize your scores and update your online comments, and I will look for your eyes to let me know when you're ready to move on. All right, looks like we are ready for the next applicant. The next application is from the Bloomington Chamber Opera, and Sam, you'll be the first reader.
Perfect. I thought there was a lot of artistic quality here in terms of its purpose and goal, which was very clear. The target audience was clearly identified and the goals were clearly outlined. What was not clear is if other artists were from Indiana or elsewhere. Seems to be a lot of great players, but we focused on two of them in this section. Great connection to IU from the artistic director. I thought it was great to bring that in. In terms of idea strategies, I appreciate that the facilitator or the artistic director here is a representative of the community that the grant is seeking to serve. I don't feel like there's a clear plan to gather feedback in a more formal way, although I did like the questions that they asked themselves in the idea section. And I don't believe that attendees were calculated appropriately in the participation figures. I think we only counted the people that were in actually participating. If not, then that's quite a low participation number. In terms of project management, I didn't really have any feedback. It seemed like an appropriate timeline, and the budget seemed appropriate. And I appreciated that there was it was such a minimalist kind of a budget. That can be nice to see sometimes, that where the balance of the funds seem to be going to directly to this rather than around a lot of marketing costs and that kind of thing. So it's nice to see that.
Thank you, Sam. Second reader will be Madison.
I agree. It sort of became more clear later in the application how many Indiana artists would financially benefit from the project. And even then, I think there were some assumptions to be made on behalf of the reviewer, just because of the association of the artists to Indiana-based organizations like IU. So that would have been nice to have some clarity on. Additionally, always curious what percentage of tickets will be made available to economically disadvantaged areas as stated in the application. And in targeting school music programs alone, are you perhaps leaving out some children who might be greatly impacted by the opportunity of witnessing these types of performances? So I also agree with Sam that the projected participation numbers do not appear to include the audience. That's how I perceived that section. And I think that there was maybe a dearth of community engagement activities listed in the timeline specifically. The timeline section could have used a little bit more substance. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. Any additional or opposing comments?
Just to support what Madison is saying, including some community engagement activities along the way would be helpful, even if it's just online through Facebook or something like that, getting everybody involved with the process.
Great. Thank you. All right, so take a moment, finalize your scores, and if you need to make any updates to your online comments or scores, please go ahead, take your time, and let me know if you need more time. All right, I think everybody appears to be ready for the next application. The next application is Early Music Associates, and Madison, you will be the first reader.
I thought that the artistic value was pretty clear in this application. I think there was a wonderfully diverse group of artists that were supported by the project, and the YouTube examples that were provided really just offered a well-rounded experience to the application reviewer. One of the things that I was left questioning was just how you define underrepresented groups in your work. And are those data points supporting your work targeting these specific groups? Additionally, it would be of interest to know if you've seen greater participation in your programming since moving your concerts and workshops out of those traditional type of concert halls, as mentioned in the application. And where evaluation is concerned, it might also be helpful to consider wrap-up meetings with various community partners for that continued improvement. So making sure that you have a touch base with them post-event.
Excellent. Thank you, Madison. The second reader will be Sam.
I agree. I loved the variety of performance that they've identified in the artistic section. And I thought that this was a good example of using a great mix of local artists and also bringing in specialists. I really appreciated in the idea section, the plans to, excuse me, engage folks, specialists in different cultures to support those workshops along with the musicians. I love that they thought to move their event to more inclusive locations and their awareness of what demographics might be missing from their board. I didn't see any specific strategies to address those gaps, but I thought it was the awareness was a strong point in this application. And I do agree with Madison that I'd love to know more about how that has impacted things, but I appreciate that this is feedback that was taken from previous performances. I thought that the project management seemed very realistic in terms of timeline and in terms of budget. Everything seemed the timeline was very thorough and seemed to address a lot of different points. And it does seem like all of the players involved are in the planning here are definitely prepared to handle this. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Sam. Other panelists, any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay, so take a moment, finalize your scores, update your online comments if you have any changes, and let me know if you have need any more time or if you're ready to move on. Okay, appears we are ready to move on to the next application, and it is from Forgotten Clefs. And Sam, you'll be the first reader.
Perfect. I'm just loading that up. All right, it looks like on this one, I thought that there was a strong level of artistic quality, a strong level of direct benefit to Indiana artists. In terms of idea, we have a decent amount of a high level of underserved community benefit. I did note that I love that they were modeling diversity by featuring Black performers, and also appreciated the tiered system of addressing barriers in terms of income, ability, and race. And I also appreciate that they took weather difficulties into consideration. I know our mid to southern Indiana weather can be unpredictable, and moving an event that's been impacted is a great way to address some of those barriers for folks that may not have a great way of getting out in the weather. I thought there were fantastic examples provided through the YouTube links and through that information that was provided in that section. The activities timeline seemed pretty thorough. I didn't notice any major holes in that. And the budget area was also well balanced. I appreciated how much in-kind donating they had happening there from the participants, but also from supporters around the project. I thought that was a good sign of a successful event. So.
Great. Thank you, Sam. And the second reader for this will be Taryn.
I don't have very much to add to that. This program has a 5-year history with requests to return, so it seems like people are enjoying it. And combining classical instruments with modern dance and heightened visuals, presenting it to children has the makings of a meaningful and authentic experience.
Thank you, Taryn. Any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay, thank you. Please finalize your scores and update any online comments, and let us know if you need more time, and we'll move on shortly. Take your time, and if you're ready, looks like everybody is just about there. Okay, our next application will come from Las Aves, and our first reader will be Taryn Marks.
Thank you. The project purpose here is clear, and it draws on their past performances. The focus on highlighting female classical composers I thought was fantastic. Exposing the broader Bloomington community to their underrepresented works has the ingredients for, again, a meaningful and authentic experience. Each of the musicians involved has direct ties to Bloomington if they don't still live here, and the requested grant funding would support them directly. Looking at the idea principles of community engagement, depending on the venue, there may be accessibility issues for live performances. This includes, but is not limited to, transportation to the event and accessibility in the space. Their plan to record and distribute the performance online is a good one, but will rely on their ability to market and promote. There's some reservation about the concept of developing the project for rather than with the community. Asking for feedback throughout the process via email, social media, direct interactions would help satisfy these concerns. They have shown a desire to survey the audience after the fact to gain insights into its impact. Their Instagram account and YouTube videos do an adequate job of showcasing the artists and their abilities. However, they don't focus much on the community's reaction to their work. Since this is a newer project, this is understandable, something to consider going forward. And then looking at the project management, overall guidance for the project seems capable and experienced. The timeline provided is a little sparse. I'd like to see more details and specifics for the project should it move forward. The budget add projected costs seem appropriate for the desired outcome. Marketing costs may prove higher than anticipated for Facebook, Instagram ads, flyering, etc.
Thank you, Taryn. And the second reader for this will be Bonnie.
So I think that there were a few things that were a little unclear for me, probably because they were still trying to deal with the COVID ramifications from the last couple of years. With the CD, I wasn't sure. At one point, there was talking about doing a CD, so I wasn't sure if they were still planning on producing it or if it is going to be just online. I also thought with the social media that the Instagram marketing could be beefed up a little bit, and Facebook media also maybe have more posts. Not a lot, but just at least a little bit more frequent. To kind of make sure that they are still reaching out in a timely fashion and kind of hyping up the event. And I, like Taryn, I also felt like maybe there needs to be a little bit more to reach the underserved community.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any new additional or opposing comments?
I just wanted to add that I thought that the number of participants felt low. I know that those reached digitally is not included in that number, but it felt like that could be mentioned elsewhere, what the projected numbers of that are, even if it couldn't be included in that total. I appreciated that in terms of idea strategies, that the performance is available free of charge, both in person and digitally. But for a group that, in my opinion, was quite a bit for the community, by the community, female produced for female posers, that it lacked a lot of other barriers that could be a part of this project. Were there other groups that could be collaborative that are women focused? Are there, the project itself really focused on bringing these women composers to light. It seemed like there were a lot of collaboration opportunities here that could really elevate it and also reduce some of those barriers. And that was a missing piece for me.
Thank you, Sam. Any other comments? Okay. So take a moment, finalize your scores, update any online comments you have, and again, let us know if you need more time. And we'll proceed shortly. All right, looks like we are ready to proceed. Is everyone good? Okay. Our next application comes from Life Designs, and the first reader will be Bonnie.
Okay. With this, I thought there was, strong methods for the idea aspects, definitely serving the underserved community as both audience and as both artist and audience. I did have a little concern when I saw that they don't plan to start until July to find the venue, artists, keynote speakers, sponsors, and the event actually happens in October. I thought that was a pretty fast timeline there. And then I also noticed that it was entirely, project is reliant on the grant, which is the possibility of an IAC grant, which I understand is fine.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. The second reader is Taryn.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Any new, additional, or opposing comments? Okay, let's finalize the scores, update your online comments, and again, let us know if you need more time, and we'll proceed shortly. Before we proceed, is everyone doing okay? No need for any breaks or anything like that? Just wanted to check. Okay, looks like we're all good. And again, take your time. If you need more time, let us know. All right, got eyes up. Looks like we're ready for the next application. And it is from Opera Maya. And Madison, you'll be our first reader.
Sure. I think one of the biggest questions I was left with this application is how many Indiana-based artists are actually involved in the project. Somewhere between 17 directly benefiting financially and then 32 indirectly. So it would just be nice to know how many of those are Hoosier artists versus artists that are coming in from out of town to support the event. Additionally, later in the application, it talks about various geographic locations that are served, particularly rural townships in the region. And it was unclear to me how the project will serve those geographic locations outside of school outreach, and why these specific places were selected or considered underserved as part of this application. So again, there are a lot of things listed there, but just some reasoning behind why. Also, when it came to the marketing material, I felt that there was very little marketing materials to be found on the Viva Maya Culture Festival specifically. The umbrella organization seemed to have a lot of things, but when it came to the festival specifically, it felt like there were a few things that I could find as part of the application. That's all.
Thank you, Madison. And the second reader will be Bonnie.
I just wanted to mention that I thought that the marketing materials were very clear, very bright, and definitely eye-catching, which I think were very. I think that will definitely suit what they are trying to do and attract potential visitors.
Thank you. Any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I loved the very intentional engagement with the 70+ community in collaboration with the Council on Aging. In terms of the marketing materials, I did feel like the marketing materials that we were provided were a little bit busy, and also are something, given the lack of the small amount of marketing materials that there were, the ones that we saw weren't necessarily friendly to lower reading levels or visual restrictions. And in terms of, there's a lot of tiny print on that PDF. So in the intentional engagement of the 70+ community, I think it's a careful balance of being sure to provide enough information that the people that we're engaging know what to expect, but also making that information visual friendly and reading level friendly. So just something to consider, given that there was such little marketing material otherwise.
Thank you. Any other comments? Great. So take your time, finalize your scores, update your online comments, and let us know if you need more time, and we'll proceed shortly. Does anyone need any more time? Okay, we'll proceed with the next application. and it is from Orange County Rehab. And Madison, you will be the first reader.
This application seemed to demonstrate a high artistic experience for the participants. It was interesting to see how many different mediums are being offered through this program. When it came to the examples that were provided, the artistic examples specifically, it would have been more impactful to see maybe some high definition or color photos instead of just the black and white copies, which I understand not everyone has access to color printing. But it also would have been helpful to know how much each of the artists are being paid, to just to itemize that a little bit better. I also wondered if there were other community partners outside of the library that might be helpful in engaging their target audience. And it would have been helpful to know their specific goals, either numbers or percentages, in obtaining those surveys, interviews, observations, what have you, that are listed in the application. So just sort of some target goals for those. I found myself looking for more information regarding the surveys mentioned in the beginning of the application, which drove the selection of the types of classes and artists. So I wondered, is that reflected in the evaluations and surveys that are sent following the classes to garner more ideas for the types of mediums that the project offers? And then where the budget is concerned, the IAC request lists $4,700, but then the budget says $4,900. So just want to make sure that the budget is balanced and your in-kind is listed separately. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Madison. The second reader will be Sam.
I agree with everything that Madison said. Especially, I loved the way that they used the data from those surveys. For example, 95% of individuals participating will at least complete at least one project. So I loved seeing those statistics, but I did also wonder what other barriers could be addressed using those surveys, and how that information might be used to become more inclusive in terms of race, access, et cetera. Those pieces of diversity were not addressed in the application as it was. I did appreciate some of the other pieces of access that were addressed, like adaptive equipment and creating a sign for help with volunteers and participants. And I had the same note about the written budget.
Thank you. Any new additional or opposing comments? Okay, well, thank you. And again, take a moment, update your scores if you need to, add any additional comments, and let me know if you need any more time. All right, if everyone is ready to proceed, our next applicant will be Owen County Sounds. And Sam, you will be the first reader.
Thank you. So it seems like this application has a really high artistic value in terms of supporting, these student musicians. And it felt like the application was kind of underselling the artist benefit that the funds were being used for. I would love to know more of the long-term statistics, since the program has such a robust history. We're looking at 14 years of history, and I think that there was more historic information that could have supported this application. For example, how long do students stay enrolled in the program? They focused a lot about the impact and the shortage of musical programming in these schools. So I'd love to know how long those students stay enrolled in the program. How do they support the program in the future? But the quality, the long-term quality, was unclear without that. I also don't believe that we were clearly told how many Indiana artists were involved in the project. In terms of the idea section, I didn't see any plan to measure the impact. The project development an impact was not addressed at all. Recruitment marketing was unclear and who would be impacted there. The Facebook page has not been updated in many months, so there was information lacking there. And I'm wondering if there are other marketing materials that are used but not provided. I'm also wondering if the problem with that might be the fact that this is seen as a supporting piece to a larger project. And if so, how can we tell us more about the larger project so we can clearly see more of the big picture stuff there? I gathered from previous comments in the application and the marketing section that the project is managed by folks who've been involved for many years. And so that, and like I said, it's had a long successful history, but that section was relatively incomplete for me. It was not reflected in this project management section. The budget looked reasonable, and again, it kind of brought up some information that was not addressed in other sections. Student fees, for example, was not part of anything that we'd heard about previously. And I think that could have been addressed in the ideas section or in other parts of the application. This was a pretty multi-layered application in my opinion. And so I don't know if there were pieces that I was just missing or if it was laid out in a way that made less sense to me, but that was my experience reading it. Strong artistic value, lacking some supporting details.
Thank you, Sam. And our second reader will be Taryn.
Just to support Sam's comments on measuring the project's impact, is also unclear for me. Seeing direct results in the community seems straightforward, so you get feedback working with the community. I would like to see more specifics about how impact will be measured. And then to wrap that up, good collaboration with the community rather than simply for them.
Thank you, Taryn. Any new, additional, or opposing comments? Great. So take your, oh, I'm sorry. We do have Madison, go ahead.
I would just say in terms of the planning activities that were listed, some of the things that I think I was missing included things like recruiting accompanist, marketing and promoting the concerts, obtaining feedback from the participants, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Okay, so take a few moments, finalize your scores. If you need to make any updates to your online comments or scoring, let me know. We have time. And we'll proceed shortly. Okay. Is everyone ready to proceed? Okay. So our next application comes from the Porcelain Art School of Indiana, and our first reader will be Taryn.
Thank you. So looking over the artistic quality, this is a very interesting art form that I honestly didn't know very much about before reading the application. Looking through the application, it appears that the Porcelain Art School relies almost entirely on instructors from outside of Indiana. I understand that it's a fairly small artistic community, but it would be nice to see more representation for Indiana artists. Indiana residents taking the classes, I thought could gain training that could lead to financial benefit and or support should they pursue the craft as more than a hobby. However, the secondary goal wasn't clear from the application. In terms of idea principles, the Porcelain Art School knows and understands their target demographic very well. This was shown through the materials they submitted. Their focus seems to be towards creating art opportunities for the identified community rather than with it. However, the interactive nature of art training is collaborative. So I wanted to note that. In their application, they mentioned ADA accessibility at their facility, reaching out to a younger demographic, which they view to be most likely to continue the art. So they're looking to support it over a longer time period. Adding more information on strategies for reaching underserved communities would strengthen this application. This could include more scholarship options to defray the cost of attendance, and more information about how students are surveyed would be helpful. What's the structure and how is that feedback used? And then in terms of project management, with a 40-year history of providing porcelain painting instruction, the art school seems to have an efficient process.
Thank you, Taryn. Our second reader will be Bonnie.
And I concur with Taryn. I would especially like to see more information about the underserved and how they can increase that aspect of it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any new, additional, or opposing comments?
I only wanted to add that the examples that were provided were mind-blowing through this particular medium, very impactful. So it's great to include those examples.
Thank you. If you want to go ahead and finalize your scores, update your online comments. If you have any changes, take your time and let me know if you need more time or if you're ready to proceed. All right, I can see everybody appears to be ready. So we're going to start with the next application, which is Reimagining Opera for Kids. And Bonnie Good, you are the first reader.
Okay. And my main notes about this particular one is that I felt like the timeline was kind of vague on the specific elements of the performances. So such as the rehearsals and, just basically for the planning on this. And I felt like there just needed to be a little bit more information. I also would have liked a little bit more information in the budget. It looks like there's 4 artists that are paid directly and it's going to be $10,000 going to the artist, but the budget is $5,600 for the project. So I just would have liked to see a little bit more information in the project budget as well.
Thank you, Bonnie. Our second reader is Taryn.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Other panelists, any additional new or opposing comments? Okay, thank you. Take a moment. If you need to make any changes, again, finalize your scores, update your online comments, and let us know when you're ready to proceed. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll keep moving along. And our next application is from Riversong Music. And our first reader will be Bonnie.
Okay. So on this one, I thought that in the artistic quality section with the purposes and goals, there wasn't as much concrete information about what the project is actually doing. I especially thought the first paragraph was a little more generic, so I'd have liked a little bit more information on that. I also was kind of struck by when the application was discussing the underserved. I understand the Brown County residents definitely include a lot of economically disadvantaged people in that, but they also cited tourists as part of their target demographic. So I guess I would have liked a little bit more information about how they were working with that, just a little bit more information. And I also thought the timeline was a little bit more of a to-do list rather than a linear timeline of what they were going to do and how. So I would have liked a little bit more information on that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Our second reader for Riversong is Sam.
I agree. I appreciated in the artistic section how thoroughly they identified where each artist or musician was from. That was a strong point of this application. And it was a good mix of local and professionals from other places. I thought that was a decent balance happening there. In terms of the idea strategies, there was very little identified. I had major concerns about the the casual way that this group is collecting feedback, it does not allow for feedback that doesn't support the way they've been doing things. You know, I was struck by a line that said something like, people liked this person and wanted them back, so we did. But no formal way of collecting any of this information. And then in developing that, it seems like it could be helpful to flesh out more of a plan in engaging folks under 18. That section was a little confusing to me. So the goal is to bring in people under 18, but then we cited some income guidelines. And so I wasn't sure if the goal was to bring in economically disadvantaged folks under 18 or just folks under 18. So it just seemed to be a little bit all over the place, and making a singular strategy for promotion within those areas, or developing some collaborative partnerships might be a better way of navigating that section if the group itself is not equipped to create that plan. The budget for this was pretty significant, and seemed appropriately balanced by the participation numbers overall. Although I did feel like, again, some other collaborations might bring in more people, or the different people that they're looking for. I completely agree that the management of the timeline was more of a to-do list. But the folks involved, or at least the ones that were identified, did seem to be very equipped to handle this type of festival.
Thank you, Sam. Any new, additional, or opposing comments?
Sure. Just to reinforce Sam's comment with the 18 and under strategies, I wonder, and thinking about their approach to idea strategies, maybe one example could be developing special marketing materials for the school or children's activities. Just thinking about, I agree that there needed to be a bit more substance around the children's specific programming.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention I was happy to see that the venues listed included a lot of traditional Brown County spaces that are very welcoming to all ages, families. And I thought they did a great job getting back to kind of traditional Brown County values and helping children see some world-class musicians.
Thank you. All right, so take a moment, finalize your scores, update any comments, and let me know if you need any more time. Everybody appears to be ready. So let's go on. Our last application is from Shakespeare's Ear. And Taryn, you will be the first reader.
Okay, thank you. Looking over the application, it appears they're drawing a long track record of performances, and their goal of engaging students in history through art is a great one. In terms of the idea principles, I thought that their strategies were well thought out for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. Very well detailed in this application. And I didn't have a whole lot to say about this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. And the second reader is Madison.
I thought the applicant could have provided some specifics on how each artist will financially benefit, and where idea strategies were concerned, I'm wondering how they accommodate students with disabilities. And when they're measuring impact, what type of feedback are they getting from students outside of just real-time enthusiasm? Are their parents engaged? So just thinking about obtaining more feedback from the kids and maybe their families. And then in the activities timeline, I thought they could have better listed the post-performance feedback loop from teachers and participants in their timeline.
Great. Any additional, opposing, or new comments?
I just wanted to say that I thought their social media was pretty strong, excepting, of course, the 2-year break because of COVID, but their prior social media looked like it would be very useful, very helpful.
Great, thank you. So take a moment, finalize your scores. Let me know if you have any questions or if you are ready to conclude this panel. So once you have your final scores updated and any comments changed, is everybody complete?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this concludes the Indiana Arts Commission fiscal year 23 AP Arts Project Support Region 8 panel. Applicants will be notified of the status of their grant following the June commission meeting. And if you have any questions about Region 8, you can contact me, Sean Hildreth. My email is sean@bccfin.org, or you can call our office at 812-988-4882. And I just want to say thank you again to all the wonderful panelists here. Great job putting some very thoughtful comments and reviews together. We appreciate your support and appreciate the help of the ISC staff as well, kind of guiding us through this whole process. So that will conclude this panel. And panelists, if you can stick around for a moment, that'd be great.